everyone. Welcome to this week's episode on Lay Back the Atirojenga podcast. And our topic for this week is decision fatigue and money, the anti-budget way to stop bad financial decisions. And our guest for this week is Zdenek. Al is an experienced wealth advisor with over 30 years of experience. Al is also the CEO and founder of Trust Solus, a US-based boutique wealth management firm. He also leads K Club, which aims to simplify money management and financial knowledge for all. Al has also published Master Your Cash Flow book series with Ford Books. Hello, Al. Welcome to the show.
Great. Glad to be here.
Yeah, finally we got there in the end. So, is
I'm
this your?
sorry, what?
I said finally we got there in the end.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, is this your first time on a podcast?
Yes, it is. I'm pleased to be here.
So, what are your expectations for today then?
My expectations is to really contribute as much I can to your audience around finance. If there's something I can do that helps change your life for the positive, that's what I'm here for.
Okay. Hopefully, we're going to do that today. So, but let's start off with defining what decision fatigue is. When we say decision fatigue, what exactly is decision fatigue?
Um, Decision fatigue.
Yeah.
I think it's because I think when people see that the decisions they make have no effect on their lives, they basically start to ignore them. They get tired of them. So it's like, for example, like let's say you try to save money every month, but a bill always comes up, surprise bill, this, whatever. After a while, you may get fatigued about it. You might get resigned. You might say, gee, why am I doing this? How do I get out of this?
Yeah. So why do you think the decision fatigue always shows up strongly with money? Why do you think it always shows up strongly with money?
Well, I mean, there's other things in life too that it can show up. I mean, you can get fatigued about your work. You can get fatigued about something you hear in the news. But I guess I'm talking about finance because I think that finance is a commonality among everyone,
Yeah.
and so it has extremely powerful effect on people daily, monthly, yearly. They look in the future. They look at what they have now. They look at what other people have. So there's always judgments and things around money. Money is probably the thing we most think about, except maybe sex, every day.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But so I'm gonna link you. I'm gonna link that to what money and decisions and fatigue now to supposed smart people. So when we talk about, it says money is something we think about apart from sex. All right. So why do you think supposed smart educated people still make terrible financial decisions then?
Well, I think people in general make terrible financial decisions because we're terrible. Our societies are terrible at educating people in school about finance, just basic things, how to save money, what money means, what investment means. Just either some things to prepare for the world. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of people that, besides high school, college, advanced college degrees, they know nothing. They come out, we teach them. They go to the best universities or spend maybe tens of thousands, $100,000 or pounds to get a great education. And when they come out and they're starting to earn money, they don't know what to do, and they start making terrible decisions. So I think basic education is the reason why, and so that's one of the reasons I got into this business. By the way, I'm the poster child for that. I got out of college. I had a master's degree. I'm a CPA, which in the UK is a chartered accountant. And I knew a lot about taxes and accounting, but I knew very little about finance in general. And so I started a couple of businesses, got into trouble, almost went bankrupt. And I was very fortunate. People came out and helped me, and I recovered. And one of those people sat me down and started teaching me about finance. It changed my life. So eventually, what I did is I changed my business because I wanted to help others as people helped me. That's why I started Trail Solace Wealth Management. And quite frankly, that's why we have the K Club app today. We started K Club. Is how can we take people who have not very little financial experience or knowledge and have them start making the best financial decisions for themselves?
Okay. So, but when we talk about, you've already mentioned about your own story and how even though you were educated, how like you're the poster child, you made mistakes along the line until you got someone
Definitely.
to actually teach you about finance, right? So,
Yeah.
do you think the decision fatigue actually led you to maybe spend impulsively, or what mistake do you think you made that actually led to you almost going bankrupt with your business?
But that's a really great question. And what it is, I guess, is that, I grew up in a very modest home and I wanted to be rich. I
Fair
wanted to
enough.
have money.
Yeah.
I remember I was a small kid. I went into a department store and I wanted this little toy. And my father said, well, we really can't afford it. I remember that day I thought to myself, one day I want to go into a store, a department store, and get anything I want. So that really drove me through my teens, college, and whatever. And so I was really, today I was just a very ambitious person. I started my business when I was, I worked for a couple of companies. I started my business when I was on my late 20s. And, I'm a very, again, action oriented person. If there's a spare hour in a day, I'm doing something. So I started an accounting firm. I started a real estate management company. I started investing in real estate projects. I mean, the tunes of millions of dollars, tens of millions. And I set up about 8 partnerships. But what I didn't do, and it's because lack of experience, is one, some of the partners I picked were not good. That's one. Two, I never watched cash flow. Cash flow to me meant always like, do I have enough money in my checking account? So I never looked at bills in the future. I just looked, as long as I had money in my checking account, I could pay my staff. Well, one day I didn't have enough money uh, because the economy changed. We had a slight recession. And all of a sudden, almost all my real estate projects were going south. Um, and my company, my main company, my accounting firm, I mean, we were having trouble collecting bills. We had to one day fire a third of our staff, which to this day is one of the darkest days of my career because to take 8, 9 people and say, today, go back to your desk, leave your keys, and you're fired today. I knew I really messed up an awful lot of people's lives. And so I got to a point where could not afford things, and all my projects started to have problems, and I didn't know what to do. So I remember the turning point for me was one night at 12 o'clock at night. I went to see this guy. This guy was very wealthy. He was in the real estate a lot, but 12 o'clock was the only time he could see me. So I went there at 12 o'clock at night, and I'm trying to get him to buy into a project. And he looks at me for a few minutes and he says, Al, let's put the papers aside. He says, Al, this project's a dog. And he said, if I see this, your other project are probably dogs too. He said, you know what? You need help. So he gave me a card of a workout attorney. He said, call this guy and tell him I sent you. And so I sat down with his attorney. I remember I went home that night. It was a loneliest, low point time in my life. I went home and I told my wife, I'm not sure how we're going to get out of this, but if we do, we may even lose our house. And we had a really nice house.
Oh
Anyway,
wow. Yeah.
so I started, what I started to do, I started telling people I needed help. I went to a bank president of a local bank. I said, I can't pay you. He was understanding and he tried to help out how we could do this. I started talking to other people. And finally, there was this one guy, this one CPA planner from Dallas, Texas, Daryl Kane. I happened to contact him. I happened to see a course that he had and about financial planning. And I wanted to add financial planning and wealth management to my company as a product because we weren't getting enough income. But so I flew down to Dallas to see him. I said, Daryl, I want to know everything about planning so I can start this next week. Da, 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 da. And he said, okay, Al, what's your financial plan? I said, me? uh, I'm less. I take care of my clients first. I'll get around to me later. He said, no. He made me sit down and he helped me do a financial plan. And when he showed me my financial condition, I was really then even worse. I felt really depressed because I thought to myself, am I going to be working forever in my 70s, 80s? He said, now this is how people feel. He did that to me because he said, this is how people feel. They feel helpless when they have problems, when they're trying to do things financially. He said, now I'll show you how to get out of it. And so he showed me financial principles that allow me to go back to New York, New Jersey, where my office was, start to get help and start to change my whole business. And so at that time, I was, again, my early 30s, mid 30s. My financial plan was to be financially independent by the time I was 50 years old. And with his help and these new principles, I got there when I was 48. So I decided this guy helped me. Other people helped me. I want to help other people. So that's why when I established Trout Solace Wealth Management to educate and help people really control their cash flow, master your cash flow, make better financial decisions. And you know what? Live the life you want along the way. Just not just cut everything. Live the life you want along the way to make it worth it, and then achieve financial freedom in the time frame you wanted.
Yeah. Mm. But I'm gonna take you back to two sentences you made now. First and foremost, you mentioned that you, when you were little, you remember going to a toy store and you told yourself, no, I want to be able to, when I grow up, I want to be able to buy anything I want. And then
Right.
you also made the decision that you want to be financially independent by the time you're 50, and you called it at 48.
50 years.
So this is my next question now for you. So how much of our financial behavior do you think is actually emotional rather than logical? Because you made that decision at a young age. Oh, I never want to be broke. I always want to go into a store and be able to afford things. So how
Yeah.
much of our financial decision do you think is more of like emotional than logical? What do you think?
Well, I think when I said that in the department store, that was purely emotional. And I mean, it was a kid. I want something. It's emotional.
Yeah.
Um, and as I got older, I would tell you this is where people go wrong. It's still emotional. A lot of people approach money emotionally. I want this. I want that. I want a better job. I want a bigger house. But the thing is, and by the way, in my books, I talk about these being obstacles to people. There's emotional obstacles, and there's what I call practical obstacles, or what you just said. Um, Emotional obstacles are something like this. People, like, again, they have impulsive spending. They do things and they don't know why they're getting ahead, or they have what I call seesaw thinking. If I get that, I can't have this. If I do that, I can't do this. So to get beyond seesaw or emotional thinking, you have to say, why can't I have both? Why can't I have save for independence and still live the life I want? Most people don't think they can do that, but that's emotional. Because in the end, you have to look at facts and logic, how to do things. So the thing is, what eventually helped me was learning how to get control of my cash flow and make the best financial choice. So, for example, I have in my book what I call the wealth building formula. And all it is a relationship between money, rate of return, and time. So, for example, let's say you have to save X dollars a month over the next 5, 8, 10, 20 years and get a 6% return. Let's pretend that's your formula. Okay, you go out and you want to buy, I don't know, you want to buy tickets to a Lady Gaga concert, which we know are expensive. Let's say for you to get any kind of decent seat, it's at least $500, maybe $1,000, right? So, so you look at your formula. Okay, I have to save, let's say $1,000 a month. If this month I don't save that, what happens to the time? It's going to take me longer to get to my financial independence, or I have to make a higher rate of return. Conversely, let's say you're saving that what you should a month, and you get a bonus at work. Okay, you can blow that bonus, or you can say, gee, if I put the bonus, if I save more than I have to this month, the time to get to my financial independence or my goals goes
Shortens.
down. I get there quicker. Or I can take less risk in my portfolio. See, knowing the relationship between just those two things, you start to be able to say, okay, when I buy a house, how should I do it? When I rent or lease a car, how should I do it or buy? You start to say, how is that going to affect me? If people had those kind of, if they understood and could get that kind of relationship, they can start again to make the best financial decisions for themselves.
Hmm. Interesting. So, linking it back to the seesaw technique mindset you mentioned, right? Why do you think when people have a lot of, or maybe too many financial choices, they end up sabotaging themselves? Like you mentioned, like you talked about time and choice, right? Why do you think
Yeah.
when they are now given more financial choices, they end up sabotaging themselves?
Well, look, we all have, there's a lot of financial choices out there. The thing is, we don't have any kind of thing like, we don't have a roadmap. We don't have this thing where I can say, this is the best for me. Most people, they don't have that. They don't have a plan. They don't have a roadmap. So they just try to do the best they can. And sometimes they're in a hurry. I would tell you, most people spend more time picking the toppings on a pizza than they do sometimes in buying a car.
Are you serious?
No, look, I mean, look, when you buy a car, shop around. And then you have choices. You can either buy the car, lease the car, right? Or maybe not even have a car, take Uber or Lyft or whatever your service is, right?
Yeah.
Or a bus. See, most people don't say, okay, if I bought the car, it cost me this much per month. If I lease, it costs me this much per month. If I do this, it costs me this much per month. Which is the best cash flow decision for me? Now, I would tell you, especially in the example I gave you, it is a little more complex than that because maybe you have to put down a deposit on the car. You don't have to put a deposit on the lease. But the thing is, if you sit down and start to work the numbers, see, to me, I think you have to know what your plan is or your wealth benefit formula is first, and then you work it. Every time you make it a financial decision, you work it. Now, I will tell you, most people have trouble with that because we want financial education. So you know what you do? It's like an entrepreneur who has a business. If you don't know how to do something, get help. So what I would do is sit down with maybe a chartered accountant, maybe a financial person, and say, look, I'm trying to figure this out. Help me figure this out. See, you have to ask like I did. You have to eventually ask for help. If you try to do it yourself and you don't have a financial background, I will tell you most time you're going to make a mistake. Um, I would tell you where people make a lot of mistakes around is debt. Now, I'm not as familiar with some of the culture in Europe in debt. I do know they don't like debt. Well, we don't like debt in America either.
Mm.
And the things with debt is everyone, because their parents or grandparents were part of the Great Depression in the 1930s and 40s, they think that debt caused this problem, and it didn't. The fact that you didn't have cash flow measure, cash flow caused the problem. All right. And so people are in a hurry sometimes to pay off debt and not save. I'll pay debt now and save later. That is in general a mistake. Okay. If you do that, you basically can miss the growth of money and compounding. By the way, what corporation do you know is out to pay off all their debt? There's no corporation that's out to pay off all their debt. Why? Because they make money and value off of debt. Basically, I've had debt for 40, 50 years. I still haven't paid it off. I don't want to pay it off. Why? I'm making more money in the market or other investments than I do with debt. So why pay it off? But see, that's where you get to where you mentioned before, emotional decisions. My parents told me debt is bad, or I hear from financial people out there say, oh, by the way, it's quick and dirty. They give you these quick and dirty advice like, oh, pay off your debt first, then save. It doesn't work for everyone. Now, but by the way, this is not to mean that if debt scares you or you can't sleep at night, that you should still have a lot of debt and save. I mean, I tell people, look, the best decision for you under your circumstance is to keep on paying the debt and save the money and don't pay off it early. But some people say to me, Al, I can't sleep at night. Debt bothers me. But I say, well, then pay it off. Yeah, you have a choice, but at least know the consequence of your choice.
Yeah.
If you pay this off now and don't save, versus if you kept the debt and saved what you would have paid it off, how do you come out in 5, 10, 20 years? If you know that, you can make a well-informed decision. And then if you wanted to make it emotional, you can, or you can make it practical, you can, but at least now you're better informed.
Mm, okay. But I'm going to take you back to something you said that actually rang in my ear. You said people spend more time, right, picking the toppings on their pizza than actually buying a car. So now it got me thinking. So why do you think small decisions like what you just mentioned, the toppings on pizza, subscriptions, food, transportation, why do you think they drain more energy than big purchases like a car? Why?
Because people hate financial decisions. They see pizza's fun, vacations are fun. Wow, I can spend time. My itinerary. They'll spend days, whatever, making up an itinerary for their vacation, right? They'll spend time in it. I sometimes you get behind people that spend forever picking the toppings on their pizza or whatever. But that's fun. But see, a financial decision, oh my God, you start thinking, am I making the right one? And especially if you've made poor financial decisions in the past, sometimes you're scared to do that. So there's a lot more pressure and a lot more uh, not fun. It's a lot more upsetting to make a financial decision. So that's what I have seen in people. People are much more scared to make a financial choice than they are an entertainment or personal choice.
Fair enough. Okay. Then um what do you think about budgeting and tracking expenses, right? Since they would rather make a decision that will make them to have more fun, a fun decision rather than a financial one. So what do
Right.
you think about budgeting and tracking your expense? Do you think
Well,
that
I
actually
think that
helps?
when you use the word budgeting, that strikes fear or disgust in most people because what they think budgeting is you're going to restrict my spending. You're going to restrict me. See, I rather than call it a budget, I like to work with people and put together what I call a spending plan. What do you choose to spend on? Now, some things you have to spend on are already set: rent, mortgage, whatever. But you get the choice to spend other areas. Okay, so that's for one thing. I think you have to reframe it, just like the practical and emotional, reframe it to where, wow, yeah, I have a spending plan, not a budget. I have a spending plan. Okay, that's one. Now, two, how detailed do you want this spending plan to be? Right? Because things that people stop people from budgeting or spending plans, it's time consuming, it's restrictive, I don't have choices. So the second is to give people a choice. I always have to give people three choices for a spending plan. All right. The first one I call the quick and dirty. All you have to do is with your checking account know what comes in. Just go to it once a month, end of the month. What has come in? What has gone out? Is it positive? If it's positive, that's great. Now you know that basically you had a positive month. Is it negative? Find out why. And then maybe you have to make adjustments. But you don't have to go through every line item of it. Now that's the quick and dirty. The second one is sort of a little more time. Is just take just on a QuickBooks something automated, or you can do it on a piece of paper, right? Just take about 5 or 8 spending categories, okay, and make them sort of like fixed, like rent, things I have to pay every month, um, things that are discretionary, or even name them like rent, mortgage, car payment, and then but only have like entertainment. Don't have everything. Just have entertainment, travel, whatever, but don't have more than like 6 or 7 or 8, and then have everything go into that. And then see what you can do is automate that, because there's a lot of automation with apps today that you can hook up your checkbook to an app. Like for example, like I'm going to say K Club app. You can do that. You hook up your checking or bank account or credit cards to the app, and it automatically will come into the app and automatically do it for you in the categories you pick. Then that way you go back again, check it once a month or twice a month. What did I do? Did I overspend in that category? Am I positive or negative? And by the way, I think that works for most people. It works for me, by the way. Now, the third choice, and it's the one that very few people do, is get QuickBooks or get a thing and track every expense and have a report that comes out that has 10 or 20 or 30 lines. Now, there are people, especially engineers and accountants, that love this. And by the way, in the engineers and accountants I've dealt with, they love it. Their spouses hate it. They don't want that detail. They just want an overall, what am I doing? How am I getting by the month? So that's what I think about budgeting, spending plan, and then have it where it's simple, middle road, and more complex. And you choose the way you want to have your spending plan. But you are correct. The basic of any financial decision is knowing what comes in and knowing what goes out.
BetterHelp is the paid partner of this episode. Growing up in Nigeria, mental health was not discussed in our homes. As a man, you are discouraged from showing your emotions as this is seen as a sign of weakness. If this resonates with you, you are not alone. About 62% of adults believe that societal attitudes stop them from seeking mental health support when they need one. And that's why I've teamed up with BetterHelp to stop the stigma around mental health and encourage you to seek mental health support from credentialed therapists when you need one. These credentialed therapists listen, ask questions, and help you to see things from new perspectives in order to improve your life. BetterHelp is on a mission to help you start therapy as easy as possible. If this is something you're interested in, click on the link below or go to betterhelp.com/laidback to match with a credentialed therapist in as little as a couple of days. You can also get 10% off your first month by using my link or the code laidback. So, you've already mentioned that people don't like the term budget. So they would rather say planning your spending, right, or tracking
Spending
your
plan.
finances or whatever. You also mentioned we were taught in the past that debt is bad, whereas it's actually good, right? So if you bring these two together, right? So do you think leveraging and actually getting into debt, like in a smart way, and then tracking your expenses as well and your finance or your spending, do you think doing this so cautiously, like being disciplined in these two areas, do you think is a way? Do you think it's very very necessary to build wealth?
Well, keep in mind when you say very necessary, it's very necessary if you want to have clarity around your expenses and make a better decision. But for example, you make that's a really great example. Let's say you have credit card debts, you have a couple debts, card debt or whatever, and you're tracking these things every month, and you see that I'm not saving a lot, or I'm really just living by paycheck to paycheck. And so, but you say to yourself, I'm going to be careful in charging from now on. But I already have 5 or 10,000 either pounds or dollars in credit card debt, and it's costing me like I have to pay $500 a month, right? Okay. Now, again, I'm not sure how it works in the UK or Europe, but in the United States, what I would advise my client to do is call up the credit card company and say, look, I'm having problems paying, that 20%, 24%, or whatever you're charging me, and I can't make the monthly payment. I want to just have, I only want to pay $250 a month, and I want to bring the interest down, whatever. So you negotiate with them. Now, the credit card companies initially will say, are you kidding me? Are you crazy? No. But I would tell people it's how you want to approach it. But let's say you skip a payment. You'll get their attention. And eventually what you can do, you can negotiate that. And sometimes you have to play hardball a little more. Now that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is, let's say you have $10,000 in debt, again, $500 a month that you're paying on these credit cards, and you want to start saving that. This is what I did. Oh my God, a long time ago when I first wanted to find cash flow, is I went to a bank and I asked for a loan. Now, again, because I did business with a bank, I got terms that maybe other people would not, but I asked them for an interest-only loan. So if you get an interest-only loan for 10,000, and let's say interest-only loans are going to charge you 6% or 8%. 8% of 10,000 is $800. Divided by 12, that's what, $70, less than $70 a month.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, interest only forever, or it goes on 5 or 10 years. Anyway, so you were paying your, and then what you do is you take the 10,000 and pay off your credit card, and then all you do is pay the bank $70 a month, but you were paying the credit card $500 a month. So you've now found savings of $430 a month, or more than $5,000 a year.
Mm.
So overnight, you've gone from where I can't save anything to where I can save $5,000 a year. By the way, without working an hour more, and what I call shuffling paper. You're just shuffling paper. Now, my example, you have to understand, I was on the verge of bankruptcy, and I had to find cash flow. So I had about $20,000. It was about $20,000 in debt, car loan, vacation loan, something else. Okay, and I was paying $1,200 a month. So what I did, I went to this bank. They gave me this interest-only loan, and so instead of now, and by the way, it was a high rate at that time. They charged me 10%, which by the way, see, keep in mind the answer is cash flow, not percent, not rate, because 10% of 20,000 was what? 2,000 a year. 2,000 a year divided by 12 is what? It's less than $200 a month. Right, 175 or something like that, right? What was I paying before? $1,200. I could now save $1,025 a month. More than $12,000 a year. And by the way, not working an hour longer. And then what I could do, now in the United States, we have things called 401ks or pensions. You put the money in there, you save more taxes. I ended up saving like 18 to 20,000 a year on just this loan.
Mm.
And by the way, I still have this loan. See, as long as it's working for you, why pay it off? But the thing is, see, people who don't have financial education or don't know how to make those choices, like what I just showed you, what they do is, oh my God, I have all this debt. I'll pay it off first. I'll get it out of it first, and then I'll save. And if you do that, see, keep in mind, if I save 20,000 a year after 1 year, and I had zero cash before, if something happens, and I have a surprise bill, a health emergency or something, I have money. If you take that same case and for a year you pay off your loan as best you can, and you have zero money before, and something happens, you have zero money. So my way is looking at it to get more cash quickly, so you can take advantage of compounding and wealth building. 2, advantage of taxes, and then 3, you're safer all along the way.
Mm. That's really, really smart.
Yeah.
But how come, like you said, I know we're talking about financial education, but how come a lot of people don't know about everything you just mentioned now? And they're always in the race to actually pay off the debt. Like, for example, they didn't know that they can actually get an interest only loan and use that to pay
Yeah.
off the particular loan they actually have, and then have enough to actually pay over 3 or 5 years. Why do you think a lot of people don't know about that?
Well, we all know that when you get a car loan, you're given a choice 3, 5, 7 years or whatever to pay off the loan. If you buy a house, depending on what country you're in, you can have a 15, 30-year mortgage depending on your age and other things too. See, but the thing is, what's happened is people are giving us the rules. They're telling you this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
Rather than you say, well, can I do this? Can I have that? Or I want to do it this way. See, when I saw that bank president, see, I wasn't asking how he can help me. I was telling him, this is what I want. Now, by the way, I went to 6 banks, 7 banks, and they all refused me for the first bank gave it to me. So don't think, though you may have, banks, you may shock them, like, you're asking for a product, that's off the chart. So you have to ask them. Now, there's another way too. Um, for example, like, and again, it doesn't work for everyone, but let's say, you're a freshly minted graduate or in your 20s or 30s, you have a good job, but you're having trouble saving. You may have a parent, you may have a friend who will loan you the 10,000 interest only, and you may have to give them a good interest rate. Like if the interest rates today are like 5 or 6%, but you give them 10, you're still going to save more, right? So think of that. Um, there are sometimes you could have a zero interest rate credit card for a year or 2 years and play that game. There's all kinds of ways to do this, but the thing is you have to start like, well, okay, what do I have? What are the issues, and where are the areas that I can possibly save money?
Hmm, interesting. So now we've talked about that and how the smart ways to actually save money. So, but why do you think a lot of people, when they become mentally exhausted, for example, maybe they're thinking about the loans they have, the credit card loan, loan and bills they have, why do you think when a lot of people become mentally exhausted, they tend to spend more and they try as much as possible to reward themselves? Maybe they end up splurging on something. Why? Even though they are thinking about that loan and the loan is making them to be mentally exhausted, most of the time they end up splurging on something to reward themselves. Why?
Well, again, we go back to at the beginning emotional obstacles, and the fact is they don't know how to get out of it. They don't know what decision to make, and they think, and they're being told by news articles, other planners, you know what, you're spending too much on Starbucks. You know what, you're spending too much. You know what, you have to cut. You have to make your lifestyle whatever. So again, who likes restrictions? Who likes to say I can't live the way I want? See, notice in all the things I just said before, I never started out by saying get a spending plan and then cut. Cutting does not work. I think what you do, you can give people a choice, like if you didn't spend as much there or whatever, but make it their choice. So the reason people are not doing this because they're not given any choices. They don't know what to do. They don't know who to trust. And so it's like anything, if you don't know what to do, sometimes you say, screw it. I'm going to go out and have a good time. I'm going to go out. An impulse purchase makes me feel good for a little while, right? They're trying to put some joy into their life. They're trying to put some hope into their life. And so, but we all know short-term hope does not work. So what I like to tell people is that, let's not talk about cutting your life. Let's talk about the life you want to live and see how, well, with what you have, what you're bringing in income, whatever, how you can do that. Okay. And that's why I like to, now, again, sometimes I've worked with people to where when they say the life they want, their income is here, the life they want is there. So we say, okay, how are we going to get there? For example, just recently, there's a couple of Gen Zers I mentor, and this is one young man. He's about 23, 24. And his biggest thing is that he wants to be independent of his parents. Right now, his parents are help paying for his apartment or whatever, and he wants to get out of that. So, because I started with him, I said, well, what kind of financial plan do you have? 5, 10 years? He said, oh, that's too long. This is where I want to be in 3 years. And that's a way to start. If you don't want to know where you want to be in 20 or 30, start with 3, 5 years. And so he now knows. I worked with him. I said, well, how much is coming in? And I said, how much is it going to cost you to be on your own? So now he knows what that is. And now he has choices. He actually went to his boss and asked for a raise. Or he asked him, he said, where am I going to be a year, 2 or 3 from now? Right? So that if the boss came back and said, well, you're going to be here, and that's enough for him to be independent from his parents, then he solved the short-term problem. But let's say the boss said, well, you're going to be here. It's not enough. He has choices. He can cut. He can just keep on using the money from his parents, or he can get another job. See, when you start to have more detail of what you have, what's coming in, going out, you can start to make decisions. You can start to make decisions. And I think if you can start to make decisions, even if temporarily you're still struggling, you now know where you have to go. You now have direction. Most people have no direction. They don't. They have no direction. They don't know how to do it, and they have no direction.
Hmm. Okay. But using your client you just mentioned, who ended up asking, he told you to cut it down to just 3 years and then ended up asking for a raise. So thinking long term now, which one do you think is more valuable? Earning more or spending or deciding to spend less? What do you think is more valuable?
Well, I think I don't mean this to be a cop out answer, but it all depends on the person and who you are. Finances is personal to every person. I have dealt with literally hundreds, if not thousands, of people, and no one is alike. You have some people that they don't mind if they eat beans and franks every day for the next 20 years. They'll do that. You have some people say, look, I want to enjoy life along the way. I want a vacation a year. I want this. I want to get married. Whatever. You know, what you do is you ask that you help them deal the cards and then say, okay, to do this, this is what you may have to do, or give them choices. And then again, and just be honest with them. But it all begins with like you're here today and you want to get here. All right, what do you have to do? You have to start getting to what the numbers are. What do you have now? What's going in and out? And then how can I make a better choice? I mean, I will tell you, and again, I don't want to sound like this is easy because for a lot of people, this is difficult. It was difficult for me. When I was on the verge of bankruptcy and I finally started to get some breathing room, I would tell you, I only saved $5 a week. But that was such a lift to me. I could save something. And then I got to $100 a week and then $200. And so, I now knew I wanted to be independent by 50 and I had to get to this number. I wasn't going to do that all today. It's going to take some years to get there, but I finally got there. But the thing is, and you can track it along the way. And so I think that if you do that, if you know where you are today, where you want to go, what you have coming in, what you have coming out, provides clarity. You now know your situation. And now when decisions come for you, now you know you have choices on what decisions to make.
Hmm.
And the decision always is, by the way, whatever adds more cash flow to my monthly savings, always pick the decision that adds more cash flow to you.
Hmm. Okay. So with that in mind, about making sure you take the decision that actually brings you more money, more cash flow, to you as a person, what's the first financial decision people should eliminate? We've already talked about making sure that we add that, making sure that the decision we make is the one that actually adds more money or cash flow to us. So, but what's the one financial decision that people should eliminate?
Which should they should eliminate? Rather than eliminate, let's talk about what they should be doing or adding. Okay, because for example, let's say you're in a job and you're only going to get a 2 or 3% raise, whatever, and you're not going to get the income from that, but you like your job, or you have to stay in the job for a while. Okay, well, why don't you get a side gig? You can work for Uber, you can work for Lyft, you can work for DoorDash, or quite frankly, especially younger generations today, they're really whiz at computers. Have a side business where you help people build websites, become a part-time realtor. I spoke to a guy today. He was telling me he wanted to get started in some sort of side gig, but he wants to work towards finance. I said, why don't you go to a firm that has tax courses where you can take the CAT course, like an H&R Block, and then you'll work for them and learn about taxes as you're working your full-time job. So, I like to look proactively at income first. What kind of choices or what kind of potential do you have there? Because no one likes to start out by saying, well, you know what, we're going to start out by eliminating this.
Mm.
We're going to cut our way to your financial freedom. No one wants to do that. And quite frankly, I've never had to do that with a client. I've never had to do that with a client.
Mm.
Because once you get them excited about looking at their stuff, they naturally start to make better decisions. Maybe they drop those subscriptions they don't need anymore, those cable channels or other things. They naturally start looking at these things. So So I think that's a much more positive. It's like budgeting again versus spending plan. Much more positive.
Hmm. Okay. So talking about your clients and how you deal with them, you did mention that everybody's relationship with money is different, right? So assuming you have a client who has this identity, I'm bad with money, I'm not good with money. Do you think that identity and mindset, do you think it actually reinforces their bad financial decisions?
Very good. That's exactly it. See, now we're talking about internal conversations we have, communications with yourself. One of the things that when I was a young professional that I didn't have, I was very poor in communications. And then when I was having difficulty financially, I had a coach. And this coach, she basically started talking to me about how to communicate with people, but how to communicate with yourself first. Because our inner conversations can be the most ungenerous ones we have. You're going to look bad. You're going to stutter. You know you don't know how to dress. They're not going to like me. Whatever. Those are all conversations that we have. So when you talk about that, I'm bad with money. That's a conversation. But I've heard that so many times from people. I say, okay, I don't try to argue with their conversation. I say, well, then let's have a different conversation. I'm going to get better with my money, just a little bit. I'm going to get a little better with my money, right? So but I do think what you're talking about, the internal conversation, is extremely important. It really, what we tell ourselves determines what we can do or not.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But because of
It's like, by the way, it's like a soccer player in the field.
yeah,
It's like the star saying, "Give me the ball. Let me take the shot. The penalty shot. I want to do it." Versus the guy says, "I don't know. I'm not playing too well today. Oh, please don't give me the ball. Oh no, 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 no. Don't let me take. You see how
it's in the
conversation is the
mind.
same
Yeah,
way. Same way.
yeah. But because of time, all right, we're gonna round off now. So if there's anybody listening to our conversation today, so what's that one money decision you would like them to take from the discussion?
Well, I would say the one decision within yourself is if you're struggling and you want to get better at it, ask for help. Find someone to help you, or find something. Read a book, but get a financial person. In fact, if there's a person that you know that has a business or something, or they look like they have it together financially, sit down with them. How did you do it? But start. Just don't sit there waiting. Go out and practically get it.
Yeah.
Two, I'm going to plug this. Go to the K Club site, kclubapp.com, and look there. We have a lot of education. We have an AI thing where you can ask Al Zdenek a question, and I'll answer you. And then go to our app in the App Store, kclubapp.com.
So talking about K Club, right? What is it all about? Can you tell us more about K Club? What is it about?
Well, keep in mind that I had I had Charles Solace Wealth Management for many years, over 30 years, and I sold it some years ago. And quite frankly, you know, my mission when I started it was to help people make better financial decisions, um, live the life they want, and achieve financial freedom in the time frame they wanted. And I sold the company, but my mission didn't stop. I still have this in me. So what I did, a young man approached me about 2 years ago. He read my books. His name is Amin Borman. He's the CEO of our company. He's a double data PhD, data scientist. He said, Al, I read your books. I graduated from all these advanced courses, and I didn't know what to do financially. And I read your books, and they were great. I want to help people with this. So he and I joined forces about almost 2 years ago, and we decided to form Cake Club. Why? Because making decisions should be a piece of cake.
Hmm.
Should be as easy as cake. Anyway, and so we started this to build an app, a website and an app that educates people. A lot of apps out there, they'll redo your loans, they want you to invest and whatever. We're not doing that. We want people to come, you pay a subscription fee. And by the way, for anyone watching this, if you go to Cake Club app on the app and you put in easy as cake, right? You get a 3 month free subscription. Okay. Um, but the thing is, we decided to do this because my mission hasn't stopped. His mission hasn't stopped. So we're out to basically reach tens of thousands, maybe millions, make sure they can make the best financial decisions possible, live the life they want along the way, and achieve financial freedom, whatever that is to them in the time frame they want.
So is this open to everybody globally or just people in the US?
All right, that's a good question. Okay, for one thing, it's available now only on the Apple Store. So if you have an Android, it's not. But we're going to be on that platform hopefully this coming year. But it is active here in the United States, in the UK, France, Germany. I think maybe Spain. There's about 4 or 5 countries in Europe, and our goal over the years is to
Is to
expand
expand.
that goal globally.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask you one final question. So if there's any listener out there who is interested in your work, in your book, and wants to connect with you, what's the best way they can actually learn more about your work or connect with you?
Well, the best way is to go to kclubapp.com. They'll see a lot of what that's going on there. If they wanted to learn more about me and my books personally, you go to Al at alzenick.com. You go there, you'll see my books, you'll see the many articles and the hundreds of things I've done over the years. And by the way, I am writing a new book along with Amin to basically update my Master Your Cash Flow because while I think the principles are the same, generations are different, how they think about money and how they think about things. So we're updating that book. It's going to come out probably around June.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this week. It's been a very, very insightful conversation. I learned a lot. At least I've learned today that debt is actually a good thing, not a bad thing. Not a
Yeah, use that smarter. By the way, thank you very much. I hope that your listeners get a lot of they get some advice out of this and some guidance. And I thank you for having me.
thank you so much, and hopefully we'll do this again.
Great.